Callis, if you'd read the instrument to the record, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Members, this is House Bill 244 by Representative Kerner, provides relative to electronic monitoring.
Rep. Kerner on your bill.
Yeah, well, this bill is just making providers and the whole industry more accountable. And before I start, I have Jill Dennis and Matt Dennis here with me. I'd like to let Jill say a few words.
Jill Dennis, the Association of Supervised Ankle Monitoring Providers. I've been doing this for 22 years, 22 years in criminal justice. My journey didn't start with Miss Beasley's murder in 2021. I was working with my boots on the ground in 2014 when Richard Yeager was murdered by 2 juveniles wearing unsupervised ankle monitors. And later when 15-year-old Yvonne Elo was murdered while wearing an unsupervised ankle monitor. Murders of Portia Pilot, Christy Thibodeau, and Jacob Carter, we all know happened because of a broken system that could have been avoided. But this is not just a New Orleans problem. In 2023, after being accused in 2 separate murders, Kevin Dukes goes unsupervised for 10 days before missing his trial date. The Waffle House murder of Horace Watson and Leonard Leslie, Tedrick Owens, and so many, many more. I was screaming way back then and was tired of the fact that the only time we had a discussion about problems with GPS is when someone was hurt and killed. Then once the next breaking news story occurred, victims quickly realized they were offered false promises because nothing would change. I would say the strange thing is, in none of these stories do they name the provider. Not one time are they held responsible, and many are still providers today and are still fighting to remain unaccountable and unregulated. James Finn with The Advocate described it best when he said, as law enforcement asked pointed questions about the system's effectiveness, Baton Rouge politicos speaking on behalf of GPS firms cried foul in public meetings, saying the government is encroaching on their bottom lines. That is until DA DeQuilla stood up and said enough is enough and indicted a provider. Until this time, the providers were not even named. Even when it was their unwillingness to truly supervise an offender released to them, so many people's lives could have been saved with some accountability and responsibility. Last year, you were all part of the first step to end this horrible trend that stopped these horrible providers from continuing to be unaccountable. Louisiana is the only state that holds providers criminally liable if they intentionally withhold reporting to a court. However, we have a Baton Rouge DA announcing removal of a company from Baton Rouge for noncompliance. Why is the law not being followed? And this provider charged like the one in St. Francisville? Why allow this provider to just move on to the next parish? Why only CTS monitoring when another Baton Rouge monitoring program, DTS, allowed unsupervised offender Jonas Bruce to shoot his girlfriend, call her an Uber to get to the hospital, and then disappear?
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. Rep. Kerner, I have seen this bill. I have seen so many iterations of amendments. I don't know where we are. Let me tell
Can I say a
you.
word? Can I say something?
Okay.
Chairman and members, we are going to pull this bill. I'm pulling this bill, but I wanted to give the 2 people that asked me to carry this bill a little opportunity to say a few words before I pull it.
Gotcha.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
So that's going to be Matt Dennis. Is that correct?
Yep.
Mr. Dennis, good morning.
Good morning. Last year, Louisiana became the first and only state. This body passed a law that allows you to arrest me if I don't do my job. If you don't know me, you can't figure out who I am. You have no idea who is watching people on ankle monitor. You have no way to find out. You cannot find out. The one thing you'll read about in the newspaper is the dead person. You'll read about the person that killed the dead person, but you won't read about that monitor or that provider. And that provider will just go back tomorrow and do the same job over. There's 3 things you need to be able to properly do ankle monitors in any state. You need to have laws that allow you to take people like me out if I don't do my job. You need to be able to identify who I am. This industry is not licensed. It's not regulated. It's not instructed. Felons can walk into a jail and put an ankle monitor on somebody. And when that person kills somebody, the ankle monitor person doesn't care. You have to change this. Licensing is the only way to do it. A bail bondsman walks into a jail, hands a piece of paper to a deputy, receives an inmate into their custody. They have one job: make them go to court. An ankle monitor program walks into a jail, hands them a piece of paper, and receives an inmate into their custody. They have multiple jobs. They have to protect victims. They have to maintain stay-away orders, home incarceration, curfews. They have no responsibility. They have no licensing. You don't know who they are. They don't understand the constitutional rights of the people on the monitor. Licensing is natural, and it will pass eventually. We will work until every provider in the state is licensed. It doesn't put anybody out of business to get a license, but it does identify who is in business. We need these providers to be licensed, just like the bail bondsmen are. Thank you.
Mr. Dennis, you are one of the providers,
Yes,
correct?
that's
You
correct.
and your wife. Okay. Let me ask you something. Senate Bill 95 by Senator Cloud. Isn't that bill doing what you're talking about? It's putting in place policies, certification standards, registration requirements. It has passed out of this committee, passed out at the Senate committee, the Senate floor, out of this committee, and it's on the House floor today. Does that bill not do what you're talking about?
Senate Bill 95 addresses primarily the judges, and it sets rules for violations and the number of violations a person can have. It doesn't have anything to do with the licensing of a provider. The three things that we wanted to see introduced was the licensing of the provider, the registration of all offenders enrolled. You should be able to go to a website and pull up a list of anybody and find out who's on ankle monitor and who's providing that service. So House Bill 244 did that. It provided a registry for the offender and a registry for the provider. Senate Bill 95 really more or less regulates the judges, and it does fine-tune some of the punishments I face. It took, instead of me facing a $1,000 fine for not reporting, I can face up to $10,000, $1,000 a day for these fines. It's a great rule. That's just going to clean up this industry big time. But it doesn't affect licensing. We have to license providers.
It does specifically provide for certification standards, registration requirements for electronic monitoring providers and manufacturers who render electronic monitoring services.
Certification of the equipment, making sure that the equipment follows a set of guidelines. It's not a certification or a licensing of the provider.
Okay.
It's the registry of, again, the offenders and things like that. So it doesn't specifically address licensing of the provider.
And I will say, since 1993, there's been supposed to be a registry, and there's been no mechanism for that registry since 1993. So just rewording it into another part of our bill doesn't help the situation we're in right now.
Thank you. Rep. Walters.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Rep. Kerner, for bringing this bill. I briefed over it before we gavelled in. So, nevertheless, I believe what you have here is strong, and particularly on page 3, if you will go with me there, line 22, it says that one of the intents of this bill is to develop the development and the maintenance of a centralized database or management system, which shall be referred to as the monitored individual management system that contains the information of individuals and the capability of authorized users to provide real-time updates of the status of individuals within the database. I mean, it has several, it's very detailed, and it has several portions that I really like when it comes to your bill, and at the appropriate time, I would ask that we would move this bill favorable. And also, Mr. Dennis, I saw you on the TV, and I know that you mean business in the profession that you're in.
Thank you.
Rep. Walters, thank you. I believe the author has indicated he's deferring it, however. So I'd ask you to hold up on your motion. I appreciate that. Rep. Fontenot.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Dennis, I guess my first question is, you're in business to create a profit. You wouldn't be in business if you were losing money, correct?
correct.
So why would we just not allow law enforcement officers, professionals to use ankle monitoring and take out all of these people that do the monitoring? And when an officer fails to do his job, he could be charged with malfeasance. Why do we need your company? Why couldn't law enforcement do this in their own and keep the revenue?
Well, the biggest reason, I can give you a great example of that. In New Orleans, they had, when we took over 10 years ago, they had 45 people in a program that was funded for $1.2 million a year. You have a problem when you have 100 people. Let's say you have 100 people in an ankle monitor program. You have to have a minimum of 10 people to work 24/7, 365. You create a 1 officer to 10 citizen ratio.
What's
That
your
doesn't
ratio?
work in any city, huh?
What's your ratio?
What's our ratio? We have 400 people in Orleans Parish alone in our program, and I have our capabilities are unlimited because we work with the local bail agents. So
That wasn't my question. You said 1 to 10 is not effective for law enforcement. What is your ratio? You have 400 people. Do you have 40 employees?
I'm spread out across 40 different bail agencies, so they have 10, 20 employees in each. So it depends. I have one agency that's got a team of 10 bounty hunters that work for them. So
Subject to public records requests?
no, not,
Would you
if
be
we take
supportive
public
of
money, yes. If we take taxpayer funds, then yes, we have to give up public information. Absolutely.
But you're doing a public job. You've been ordered by the courts to be on a monitor. Don't you
That's
think
right.
you should be subject to public records?
If I was
requests?
licensed like the bail industry I would be, because the bail industry is required to have their documents for 10 consecutive years after the bond ends. I have no requirement to give you anything. I suggest you make that requirement part of the licensing.
Yeah, I do as well. I think the author is going to voluntarily defer, but if he would move the bill, I would ask that we amend the bill to make all
We
of
don't
these
want to
people
defer a
subject
bill.
to
We
public
want this
records.
bill to create licensing for this industry. If you amend it to get rid of the licensing, there's no bill. If we do not license it, I want you to force me to show you what you want to see, and I want to be forced and not able to say no. There's not one provider in this room you can force to do anything, and that's wrong. We watch on the news over and over, dead, 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 and an ankle monitor provider's never even named. Name them. Take them out. We helped St. Francisville file criminal charges against a provider. We fought last year to change the law to make it to where you can arrest me.
I go
That's what
back to where
need.
we started. If the government managed this program and law enforcement professionals done this, if someone would get killed, we'd hold the law enforcement officer responsible. We don't need your company. Law enforcement can do this.
Understood. Same thing with bail. A release on a bail bond could be just as easily done by the government as well, but they've allowed a third party in, and they've regulated them, and they've licensed them.
Excuse me, Chairman, I have to go walk next door and go vote real quick. Is that all right?
Chair Bacala.
The author has asked that we voluntarily defer. I don't know why we need to take testimony when the author, and I think that the rules of the House say when the author, it's tradition that we allow the author to defer. Let's just defer and move on.
At the request of the author, HB 244 will be deferred. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Chairman. Thank you, member. We're coming back better and stronger next year.
I know I'll see you then. Rep. Jordan, HB 650. Mr. Stormont.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Good